It's so great to be here. It's just an amazing event. And I think us all being in this room collectively really speaks to what the root of the word university means. It's the oneness that we share when we learn together. I'm here to talk to you today about my role as a musician, and more broadly, the role of the artist in our current climate as a world and as a nation. One of the things I started thinking about a few years ago is, I'm in school now, and I'm learning, to play my instrument. I'm learning to understand music. I'm learning the history of music. But one of the things I was faced with is I'm going to be a part of the world, after I get out of school. I mean, what is my role as a musician and as an artist? And I begin to think that ultimately my goal as a musician is to have an emotional impact on the people I play for. That's my first priority. And what do I mean by that? If you go to a pop concert, you might be excited, you might be energized, you might be thrilled to be there with your friends, the social aspect of it. But alternatively, say you're getting married, you might hire a string quartet. You might have a string quartet actually in your living room. You might sit there and enjoy dinner and a nice glass of wine. Actually, you might not even realize the music is there, but some way is impacting you emotionally. And I think in that is achieving a certain goal. But also, we have music that allows us to look a little bit more introspectively. An example is John Adams' work on the transmigration of souls, which he composed after 9/11 and was premiered by the New York Philharmonic a year after the attacks. See, these three examples are ways that music impacts us in some way, and it's also exactly what happens in all forms of art. Here's the question that I also began thinking about as a student and trying to learn what in the world I'm going to do with a music degree, is that somehow we have to answer the question, how is art a practicality in society? If you think about it, today we have a very practical use of our time, right? We're all coming in, we're learning, and hopefully we'll be inspired and we'll go out and change the world in our own ways. But as a musician, it's interesting. You literally sit on stage and you play something. Sometimes it's been composed hundreds of years previously, and you have people come in who observe silently. And what exactly is happening in that situation? It's interesting. As a society, I think what it ultimately speaks to is who we are and how art is a window into who we are as people. So there's a really interesting person that you should learn about named Deborah Borda. She's the president and CEO of the LA Philharmonic. She's taken the Philharmonic to the sky, as they say, financially. They're doing very well financially, but that's beside the point. What she talks about is a phrase that she says is looking for the imperative, the artistic imperative and the social imperative, and how they intersect. And what I opened with talking to you about, I'm in school, I'm trying to learn my craft, that's the artistic imperative. It's the stature of the arts that we learn. It's the art that's in museums. It's the art that you see when you attend an orchestra concert or anything really. But the social imperative has to be attached to that, which is how are we as artists somehow helping the community move forward. So the LA Phil, for example, their kind of answer to this question was two things. One is they have put in place a music education program which is totally changing the cultural landscape of the inner cities. To provide music education for children is totally changing the face of that community. But also they're looking to commission new music and to not allow the orchestra to be viewed as some sort of as a timepiece or as a museum piece, rather, where you come in and you don't necessarily interact with art. So what I'd like to talk to you today and show you is that arts in general influence each other, right? Literature, for example, let me just give you an example. The timeless tale of Romeo and Juliet, for example, has been adapted by composers like Tchaikovsky, Berlioz, Gounod. These implications of the arts mixing and interacting has driven the idea that art is inspired by an emotional interaction both within the artist and within an audience. Many times, I feel like, to use a stage term here, we focus too much on the fourth wall, which in theater terms is this space between me and you right now, where somehow there's some sort of separation between the artist and the audience. And I'm interested in seeing that go away. Because ultimately, the creative process for an artist might start before an audience ever hears the work. Beethoven wrote his pieces in a time and place, and we could listen to them today and have an emotional reaction ourselves to them. But many times, we don't experience the artist's own emotional reaction to a piece of music, whether they're playing someone else's music or their own. So I began to think about how poetry is a perfect window into how music and literature and dance, all these things interact, which is when we read or even when we listen to a song that has words, we're somehow taking in someone's ideas and interpreting them silently. But an artist and a musician is interpreting these in live sound. So the poem that you're going to hear today is Robert Frost's Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. And what I've done is you'll hear the author actually read his own work behind me as I play. And you also hear some keyboard tracks that's me playing. But I'm going to play over this, mostly improvised. And it's going to be my own response in real time of the poetry. And what I'd like you to do is imagine that we are all one, and we're going to collectively experience Frost's work that we're hearing today. So I hope you enjoy my reflection of Robert Frost.
Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. just think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near. Between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year, gives its harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep. The woods are lovely, dark and deep. But I have promises to keep. But I have promises to keep. And miles to go before I sleep. and miles to go before I sleep.